So Red Riding Hood opened today.
Yeah, it's exciting.
How are the numbers?
I have not. I've been doing other. I don't know. Let's fingers crossed.
So you were doing a book signing for this book that's a sort of tie-in book that was written by this author. Tell us about that.
My adopted daughter, Sarah, who I've known since she was like 13 years old. She's been in all my movies. She just graduated from Barnard, and she has this creative writing degree and was getting all these scholarships. And suddenly I thought, wait a minute, I want to have like more of the story out there. I want people to really understand the characters and backstory, and maybe she could write a novel. And Little Brown said yes, and she had something like a month and a half to write it. And she came to the set, and
based on the screenplay.
Well, that was
a starting point.
Yeah, we expanded. Actually, we expanded backward and did all the story before the screenplay, and then went into the screenplay.
So it's a bestseller already?
Strange, it entered the New York Times bestseller list like 4 weeks ago at #1, and it's #3 this week.
You're associated with bestsellers, aren't you?
We thought, oh, maybe it's just going to sneak under the radar, but I guess people are catching on to it.
And there's this cool book that has all of your art from the movie.
And then we made another little book that just had like the screenplay in it, and it had the way that I like took each word in the screenplay and did like a piece of art or like an inspirational drawing. So it's kind of like the script to screen. Or other filmmakers are like, how do you come up with ideas? And I kind of put it all in a little book. Yeah.
So my question for you is, because we've been talking a long time since Twilight, since 13. I think we go back really far, and I wondered about some of the projects that you wanted to do but couldn't. And I wondered if you could characterize your sense of why those projects were difficult to get made and why this one went forward.
Well, that's a tough thing I think every filmmaker has. I mean, right after Twilight came out, I'm like, okay, I want to do something radical, different. I got Hamlet, with Emile Hirsch, and I started working on Hamlet, and that was so fun. We took the 4-hour play and we stripped it down to like some of the most essential stuff. We got a 90-page screenplay that is by Ron Neiswanger, won Academy Award nomination for like Philadelphia and other movies, and we got this kick-ass screenplay, and we started trying to get interest in it. We got all these A-list actors that want to do it.
And it's an identifiable title,
yes,
God knows.
But people you walk in and then the faces get all glum and they say, oh, well, Shakespeare never makes any money, and there have been 3 other adaptations of Hamlet in the last 20 years. They didn't make any money. And then you say, hey, but look at like what Baz Luhrmann did by energizing, Romeo and Juliet, and that's the vibe we've got going, And then they say, well, that had Leonardo DiCaprio. So then suddenly there's always a way to get shot down, and there's always a way to hear the word no, because people are scared of making anything that's out of the box. So several other projects I've worked on like that too are just difficult to get made. Anything unique. We hear it every year at the Oscars. I worked Mark Wahlberg, fabulous movie star.
They have to be these obsessive passion projects that they will into existence.
Yeah, and you think, wait, how could he spend 10 years to make an action movie with great parts for guys? It's incredible.
And women too. Melissa Leo and Christian Bale won Oscars.
Yeah. And in fact, that's even another example. It's kind of been out there. I said it in an interview that I read that script before I knew David O. Russell was attached, and I really wanted to direct The Fighter. I didn't know he was going to have anything to do with it, and I loved it. I called my agent. I love this script, and they said, "Oh no, they're looking for a guy. A guy's going to direct that movie. No girl's going to direct it." I did not even get an interview.
So what the Twilight thing has done, in effect, is put you in a niche that people think you're commercial if you're aiming at teenage girls.
Well, it does that. I mean, it gives you an opportunity too, but it also, honestly, every movie is difficult to get made. Like you look at any movie except maybe a sequel or whatever is easy. So I think that everything is a challenge, even if you're male or female. But yeah, it helps if you have something that people can say, how can I sell this movie? Who is this movie for? And if they can identify it, okay, you've been successful to that audience before, maybe there's a chance it'll be successful again. It makes it a little easier.
That they're tougher on women directors.
Oh yeah. Well, look at the numbers. I mean, no matter what anybody says, we still have 6% of the movies, or 7, depending on the latest study. And how many studio films? Really, the last 3 women that have been greatly honored at the Oscars, we love Catherine Bigelow and of course Lisa and Deborah this year. They did not make their movies within the studio system.
Well, that's part of my question for you, because this movie was made within the studio system. It was a big studio. It was Warner Brothers. A modest budget for a studio, $42 million.
Modest, like a romantic comedy budget.
Yes, exactly. And you were trying to do a great deal with period. And you ended up shooting in Vancouver, but you built the sets on a soundstage. So that was an interesting decision to make, because it sort of has a lot of challenges attached.
It had a lot of challenges because my budget was only about $3 or $4 million more than I had on Twilight. But I had stars that got paid in this one, recognizable stars, Gary Oldman and Amanda Seyfried, which we had unknowns in Twilight. And then we also had to build the entire set, which was a big deal. You know, that was probably almost about $4 million to create the whole village and everything. We had a CGI wolf, and you know, that was a whole character had to be created. So it was very challenging, and all the costumes had to be made.
Yeah, no, the look of it is stunning, but the question that struck me was the idea that you were creating a world that was not real, that it was a very stylized kind of fairy tale world.
Right, right.
Talk about your decision on that front, you know, because every filmmaker has to sort of try to make something live in its own stylized world. Always exaggerated a little. This isn't going to be, medieval. But what were you thinking of there?
Well, you know, I immediately started thinking I had a very restricted budget. That's one thing, but what could I do to expand that world and that budget? I started looking at the paintings of Bruegel and Bosch, like medieval paintings at the time, photographers that I love, like Rocky Shank, a Texan photographer, and other works, and I started drawing, you know, drawings and sketches, and just trying to figure out how could I bring this to life in a vibrant manner.
And were you the whole question of actors wearing makeup or not wearing makeup, being beautiful or not being beautiful? Julie Christie, you didn't want her to look like an old crone. I mean, she's playing the grandmother. We all have this image of the grandmother that is not Julie Christie.
Well, the you know, old school fairy tale version of the grandmother would be like this old crone who has a nightcap, but I thought that's really not true in a way. First of all, it's not true now. A grandmother now is like playing golf, or, you know, like climbing mountains, or like starting a new, you know, a society in Africa or something. But I thought back then they probably couldn't have been that way either, because this woman, even in the fairy tale, lives on her own in the middle of the woods. You got to be pretty badass to live by yourself in the middle of the woods. So I thought that somebody like Julie, you know, would be this kind of like boho granny, like this wild grandmother that would go out and collect the herbs and know how to take care of herself and be tough in a way.